Gentlemen, please welcome Sugar CRM CEO Larry Augustin.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, SugarCon. I hope that all of you survived last night's party at the Exploratorium. We do have video and pictures, so there will be, well, let's just say that some of you need to be signing up for more licenses in return for where those photos end up. Anyway, it was a fantastic, fantastic event last night. Thank you all for making it a lot of fun. Thank you. Thank you. Great, great event. We have a fantastic day planned today, and we're kicking it off this morning with a wonderful, wonderful speaker, Guy Kawasaki. And I don't know how many of you have seen Guy speak, just incredible. And I was really, really thrilled to convince Guy to come over here and speak to us today. And you've got on your chairs a copy of his latest book, Enchantment. And I was really struggling with how to introduce Guy this morning because, you know, he's so well known, and there's, you know, you could read the bio for a long time, but most people know that. You know, Guy's the author of 10 books, well known as one of the original Apple evangelists for the Mac. But I thought I'd introduce him by talking about the way I originally met Guy. And those of you that know me, I'm an engineer at heart, so a geek, an engineer at heart. And in 1999-2000, I was running a company called VA Linux. And one day, these two gentlemen show up at my office to talk about how we might work together. They're Mike Boich and Andy Hertzfeld. And if you're a geek, you know those two names. Mike was the original software evangelist for the Macintosh. In fact, I believe Mike hired you Guy into that position, right? And Andy Hertzfeld was responsible for a lot of the system software for the Mac. So many things there. And so if you're a Silicon Valley, you know, geek like I am, these people walk on water. You know, I just want to bow down as they're walking to the office. So I'm really excited, and I got to meet, you know, Mike Boich and Andy Hertzfeld today. And I go home, and I'm talking to my wife, Alice. And I go, Alice, guess what? I got to meet Mike Boich and Andy Hertzfeld today. And my wife, Alice, looks at me and she goes, oh, that's great. How is Mike? Did you say hi for me? And, and I'm looking at her, and you have to understand my wife a little bit. My wife was born in Silicon Valley, and it's a very sort of insider network. And I looked at her and I said, you know Mike Boich? She goes, oh, yeah, you know, Mike used to hang out at my shop and whatever. And she goes, I met Mike when he was Guy's roommate. And I said, Guy? And she goes, yeah, Guy Kawasaki. And so that's my wife name-dropping Guy Kawasaki to me. So that's how I that's how I first met Guy, when he was Mike, you know, known through my wife and Mike Boich's roommate. So lucky enough to have him here, something of an old family friend in that sense. And with that, we'll bring you up on stage. Thank you, Guy. Come on up.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I'll give you more to that story, actually. So Mike Boich and I were college classmates at Stanford, and we were living off campus. And so Larry's wife's mother used to run this great coffee shop on Santa Cruz Avenue in Menlo Park. It's across the street from Stack's, if you are familiar with that area. So we used to eat there all the time. And so that's how we got to know Alice and his wife. Larry and I subsequently became closer friends because we both work out, or used to work out, at Fitness 101, which is this health club at Marsh Road and Highway 101. So I have probably seen Larry with less clothes on than most of you, which is, yeah, a dubious HIPAA violation right there. So yes. So a little bit more about my background, since Larry's introduction was so crappy. I worked for Apple from 1983 to 1987. I was Apple's software evangelist, hired by Mike Boich. This meant I worked in the Macintosh division, which many of you probably know is the largest collection of egomaniacs in the history of Silicon Valley. At least we held that record for about 30 years. Facebook recently broke that record. And because we worked for Steve, we had very special rules, unlimited supplies of fresh orange juice. We had a great travel policy that I suggest you implement in your companies, which is any flight over 2 hours qualified for first-class travel. My interpretation of the rule was that the 2 hours begins at the moment you leave your apartment. And so I lived, a good 45 minutes from the airport, so I flew first class everywhere for years. I would fly first class literally from San Francisco to Monterey. It was, it was a great time. After working in the Mac division, I started several software companies. I actually returned to Apple. I've worked for Apple twice. I have had 2 tours of duty, sort of like Vietnam or Iraq. And then I left again to start a venture capital firm, and now I'm basically a writer and a speaker. I've had a great time, mostly, in a sense, managing customer relations. In the first instance of my career, I was the evangelist, so my customers were Macintosh software developers. And as an entrepreneur and a venture capitalist, it's all about customer management and customer relations. So arguably, Enchantment is the purest form of that. This is something that I learned primarily because of Apple, because we really had to take care of developers. Back then in '84, Apple was supposed to die. Well, Apple's supposed to die from 1984 to 1995 or so, And so it was all about keeping those developers happy. And in my second stint at Apple as Apple's chief evangelist, it was truly about keeping the early adopters, the Macintosh cult, and the Macintosh developers very happy. So I hope to give you a different spin on CRM, if you will. So I have watched high-tech speakers for about 25 years in Silicon Valley. And I'll tell you, there are 2 salient points about them. First, they pretty much suck as speakers. In fact, some of the worst speeches in the history of Silicon Valley were given right here in this room. The second salient point of most high-tech speakers, other than Larry, of course, is that not only do they suck, they go long. And that's a bad combination. And if you suck and your speech is short, it's okay. Well, who cares? And if you're great and you go long, it's okay. But if you suck and you go long, that's a deadly combination. That's like being stupid and arrogant. It's like being slow and buggy. So what I've done for my speeches is I always use the top 10 format. That way, if you think I suck, at least you know approximately how much longer I'll suck, because I have 10 points in this speech. Okay, this is the art of enchantment. So, great enchantment starts with likability, because you cannot enchant people unless they like you. This is a slide that illustrates likability. This is myself with Richard Branson. The scenario here is that we're both in Moscow for a conference, and in the speaker ready room, he came up to me and he asked me if I flew on Virgin. And being the honest person that I am, I told him, Richard, I don't fly on Virgin. In fact, I've never flown on Virgin. It's because I'm a United Airlines Global Services level customer. That's the highest level of United. It's so high, people who are Global Services, we don't even know how we got to be Global Services. Just one day you get a package and say, welcome to Global Service Program. Basically everything is free and everything is easy for you. So I said, Richard, I really don't want to jeopardize that status. And when I said that, this is what he did. He got down on his knees and started polishing my shoes. That's CRM. All right? That's CRM. And so this is literally the moment I started flying Virgin America. Really, really. And, Steve Jobs, God bless him, may he rest in peace. It's inconceivable that Steve Jobs would get down on his knees and polish your shoes so that you would use a Macintosh, iPhone, iPod, or iPad. This is likability. So The start of great likability is, believe it or not, a very good smile. This is a Pan Am smile. The Pan Am smile is a fake smile. You're using only the jaw muscles. You're grinning and bearing it. You're trying to act like you're really happy to see those passengers, but you really are not. That's the Pan Am smile. It only uses the jaw muscles. A great smile is called a Duchenne smile. A Duchenne smile uses two sets of muscles, the eye muscles and the jaw muscles. A great smile uses the eyes. The key to a great smile is the eyes, not the jaw. And so, if you look at a great smile like this one, you'll notice something very interesting. Crow's feet. Crow's feet is a sign of a great smile. You actually want crow's feet. Think of all the money you save by coming to this conference in Botox and plastic surgery. You want crow's feet. This is a woman named Mari Smith. She's a Facebook marketing expert, if you're ever into Facebook marketing. And when I saw her avatar, this picture, I asked her via email, Mari, I'd like to use your picture in my enchantment speech. The good news is, Mari, that I will then explain who you are to tens of thousands of people a year. I speak about 75 times a year. The bad news, Mari, is that really, honestly, you're in my presentation because you have crow's feet. Good person, very flexible. She let me use her picture. The Shen smile. Next thing is you need to accept others. If you want to be liked, you have to like others first. You have to like others for what they are, not what you would like them to be. You have to like people no matter how much jewelry they have on their face. You have to like people no matter what their sexual orientation, gender, social economic status, race, color, creed, whatever it is. You need to accept others. This is a picture of a woman who works in the tourist areas of Edinburgh. Very interesting woman. She has a very good business model. If you want to take her picture, you have to pay her £1, which is better business model than many of the companies I funded. You need to accept others. Next point, you need to default to yes. Default to yes means when you meet people for the first time, you're always thinking, how can I help the person? You're not thinking how the person can help me. You're not thinking, what is this person going to try to do to me, get from me? You're always thinking, I'm predisposed to saying yes. How can I help you? You may think that there's a huge downside to this, where people take advantage of you. It has not been my experience. I think the upside of defaulting to yes and being more likable far exceeds the downside of people trying to take advantage of you. And I would say in my career, that's happened maybe 5 times. Arguably in those 5 times, those people weren't worth enchanting. The upside of being likable is much greater than the downside of being taken advantage of. Default to yes. Second thing is, you can be likable but not trusted. For example, you could like a Hollywood celebrity but not trust the Hollywood celebrity. You could like, at an extreme, Charlie Sheen, but you probably don't trust Charlie Sheen. There's a difference between liking and trusting. The key to trustworthiness is the sequence of events. There is definitely a sequence. It is not chicken or egg. First, you trust others. Then they come to trust you. The onus, the burden is upon you. Amazon has a policy for Kindle ebooks. You can return a Kindle ebook for up to 7 days. Many of us could read an ebook in 7 days. Amazon trusts you not to do that. So we have come to trust the Kindle program. The greatest example of trust in advance, however, I believe, is Zappos. How many of you use Zappos to buy shoes? Every woman held up their hand, basically. So, if Tony Hsieh had come to me and said, Guy, our business model is we're going to enable women to buy shoes without trying them on or seeing them, I would have told him, Tony, you are nuts. No woman would buy a shoe without trying it on or seeing it. And yet, clearly, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of women do this. Why is that? Why is it women are willing to buy shoes without trying them on or seeing it? It's because they trust Zappos. And why do they trust Zappos? Because Zappos trusted women before women trusted Zappos. Zappos has a great shipping and receiving and handling plan, which is they will pay for shipping both ways. Buy the shoe, we send it to you free. You don't like the shoe, send it back. We'll pay for the shipping back to us. And the classic example in the brick and mortar business is Nordstrom, the company that truly trusts its customers. Trusts its customers so much, it will allow you to return a tire to Nordstrom, even though it doesn't sell tires. Trust others, step 1. Step 2 is to become a baker, not an eater. An eater sees the world as a zero-sum game. If you eat the pie, I cannot eat the pie. The more you eat of the pie, the less I eat of the pie. A baker doesn't see the world that way. A baker sees the world as, I can bake more pies. I can bake bigger pies. I can bake cookies and cakes. Everybody can have a little sugar. No pun intended. So, what you want to do is you want to be a baker. Bakers are trusted. Eaters are not. Because bakers see the world where everybody can get a piece of the action. Become a baker, not an eater. And the last thing is to find something to agree on. You may not be making great progress enchanting people. Find some little thing that you can agree on. And it can be the littlest thing. In the case of Macintosh, it was a big thing. In the mid-'80s, we were trying to make Macintosh a spreadsheet database and word processing machine. Basically, we were 0 for 3. Along comes PageMaker. PageMaker started a revolution called desktop publishing. And if it wasn't for PageMaker, there would be no Apple today. PageMaker saved Apple. Truly. Imagine, if there wasn't Apple today, we'd all have phones with keypads. We'd have phones where the battery lasted for more than a day. It would be a different world, right? So, the market and Apple finally found something to agree on, desktop publishing. Desktop publishing, Aldous PageMaker was a gift from God to Apple. And I believe in God. And one of the reasons why I believe in God is there is no other explanation for Apple's continued survival than the existence of a benevolent God. Okay? Now, you may be wondering, what the hell does this picture of opera have to do with anything? So, the apocryphal story is 2 Latin American countries, big diplomatic issue. They're meeting in a third country, neutral country, not making any progress between the 2 chief diplomats. One diplomat says to the other diplomat, we have to come to some kind of agreement by Friday because on Friday I have to leave. I have to leave because I have to go back to my home country because I promised my wife I would take her to the opera on Friday night. I hate the opera, but my wife makes me take her to the opera. The other diplomat says, oh, your wife forces you to take her to the opera too? I also hate the opera, and my wife forces me to do this. And from that little agreement on something, they formed a relationship that eventually solved the problem. The key here is to find something to agree on. It can be children. It can be sports. It can be food. It can be desktop publishing. It can be the dislike of opera. Find something to agree on. Next thing is to perfect your product or service. Take it from someone who's tried it both ways. You can try to enchant people with great stuff, and you can try to enchant people with crap. It is a lot easier with great stuff. Okay? So, what is great stuff? Great stuff has 5 qualities. First, D for depth. Great product is deep. Lots of features, lots of functionality. You have anticipated what people need as they come up the power curve. Great stuff is also intelligent. When you look at it, you say, aha, this company understood my pain. This company understood what I needed in software. I'll give you a hardware example. This is a GT500 Shelby Mustang. 550 horsepower right now, 650 horsepower next year. Roughly speaking, for you greenies, this is 6 Priuses. 0 to 60 in about 4.2 seconds, okay? I would love to buy one of these cars. Asian American going through a midlife crisis. What better act of compensation, okay? Now, what prevents me from buying this car, however, is that I have 4 children. 6, 10, 16, and 18. 16-year-old is about to get his license. 18-year-old has his license. And I know that no matter how carefully I plan it, there will be an instance where they have to drop me at the airport. If they're taking a car for repair, there will be something where they will be driving this Mustang. And the thought of either of those 2 boys driving a 550 horsepower car is just immoral. Luckily, Ford has what I consider a very intelligent product. They make something called the My Key. And what the My Key enables you to do is control the top speed of the car that key starts. So I could program the key to go so that the car can go no faster than 55 miles an hour. That is a very intelligent product. Now, just FYI, it does not control how long it can take to get to 55. But it controls the fact it cannot go beyond 55. That's intelligence. Great products are also complete. It's the infrastructure, the totality of a company's offering. It's not simply the software. It's the software. It's the conferences. It's the online documentation, the APIs, the resellers, the VARs, what you people are. All that stuff makes a great product. It's not simply the software, nor is it simply the car. It's not just the leather and the steel and the rubber. It's the support of the car afterwards. Great products are also empowering. They make you feel more creative, more productive. They don't fight you. It's key to Macintosh. Macintosh doesn't fight a person. You don't have to wrestle the Macintosh operating system to the ground. It empowers you. It makes you more creative, more productive. And finally, great products are elegant. Somebody cared about the user interface. So, if you want to be enchanting, the 3 pillars are you're likable, you're trustworthy, and you have a dicey product or service. Deep, intelligent, complete, empowering, and elegant. That's the 3 pillars of enchantment. Step 4 is to launch this product or service. The way you do this is to tell a story. Don't use words like patent pending, curve jumping, paradigm shifting, scalable, enterprise quality. Okay? It's all bullshit. All bullshit. What you need to do is tell a story, a personal story, how you and your partner were frustrated because the only place you could use a computer was at a university or a large company or at a government agency. And you thought, surely there must be a better way. Why can't computers be smaller and cheaper and more easy to use? So we started Apple. Or my girlfriend wanted to sell her collection of Pez dispensers online. There was no way for her to do it. So I started eBay. Total bullshit story, but what a great story. What a great story. Point here is to tell a story. Next thing in your launch is to plant many seeds. It used to be top-down marketing. You found out who the most powerful, prestigious, famous people were in your sector, and you sucked up to them. You sucked up to them in the hope that they liked your product or service, and then they would tell the great unwashed masses to use your product or service. So you suck up to the Wall Street Journal, so they bless Lotus 123, and then all the great unwashed masses use 123, and Lotus is very successful. That's marketing 1.0. Sucking up to the Wall Street Journal, CNET, Wired, all those people. Marketing 2.0 is much flatter. Now you have to plant many seeds, because let's face it, the process of making a product or service today comes up from the bottom, not from the top. People don't read the Wall Street Journal to learn what to use. The Wall Street Journal watches what people use and then write about it. It's completely reversed. If you believe this theory, then Lonely Boy 15 is very important to you. Lonely Boy 15 does not work for CNET, Wired, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, San Jose Mercury. Lonely Boy 15 is living with his mother. He has 15 followers. He lives in a dark room. He still has, Shrek sheets. It's a different kind of person. But this person loves your product and tells his 15 friends who tell their 15 friends, and one day you wake up and you're Twitter. Twitter is not successful because some A-lister blessed it. Twitter is successful because people at South by Southwest were using it 7 years ago to find where the best parties were and the best panels were. Nobodies are the new somebodies. And if you believe this theory, then you have to plant many seeds, because it is very easy to identify David Pogue at the New York Times, Walt Mossberg at the Wall Street Journal. How do you find Lonely Boy 15? The answer is you cannot find Lonely Boy 15. Lonely Boy 15 has to find you, so you need to plant many seeds, meaning that you put your product out there in demo versions, and you enable people that you will never find and let them try to use your product or service. Plant many seeds. Marketing 2.0. Third thing is to use salient points when you describe your product or service in launch. On the left side, you see the terms that a company likes to use or an industry likes to use. On the right side, you see what people truly care about. Let's say you're in the food business. You go into a supermarket, you pick up a bag of chips, you turn it over. In 4-point type, it says this bag contains 3 servings. Each serving has 150 calories. So there's 450 calories of chips in this bag. If you can read 4 points, right? If you can understand what 450 calories means. Imagine if the bag, when you turn it over, says, if you eat this bag of chips, you have to run 25 miles. That is a much more salient description of caloric content. Next thing, in the not-for-profit business, not-for-profits tend to think in terms of dollars. How big is the endowment? How big is the fund? But the person who's giving money to the not-for-profit, they're not thinking in terms of dollars. They're thinking in terms of, if I give you this donation, tell me, how many months of food will it buy for that starving family in Ethiopia? That's what they care about, not the dollar amount. How many months of food? And in the gadget business, I know very few people who wake up in the morning saying, if only I had 32 gigabytes of storage. People wake up in the morning saying, if only I had a small, thin, beautiful device with a battery that lasted all day that could hold 10,000 songs, 500 movies, and there's an app for that. That's what they care about, number of songs. Use the kind of measurements on the right side. Miles, months of food, number of songs. The fifth thing is to overcome resistance to your enchantment. You will encounter resistance. Arguably, the more innovative your product or service, the more resistance you'll encounter. This is one example. Believe it or not, in the 1980s, electronic gaming was tarnished. So tarnished that retailers did not want to stock games anymore. Nintendo realized it had this big problem. So Nintendo took its electronic game, added this robot to it, and called it a toy. Not just any toy, an educational toy to learn robotics. Because retailers were not against stocking toys, they were against stocking games. And then Nintendo convinced kids to ask their parents for an electronic educational toy for Christmas. Very different than asking for a game. Overcoming resistance. Another way to overcome resistance is to utilize social proof. I think one of the things that made iPod successful is the simple fact that it had white earbuds. Because white earbuds were noticeable. You saw white earbuds. You knew that was an iPod. After a while, you saw so many white earbuds, you were convinced that an iPod was good. So what did you do? You bought an iPod. Now, guess what? You just added to the size of the pool of white earbuds in the world. More people saw more white earbuds, more people bought iPods, more people bought iPods, more white earbuds. It became an upward spiral. Somehow provide social proof that your product or service is being adopted. Next thing you can do is to use a data set to change a mindset. There are some assumptions of information that are just plain wrong, but so difficult to change. Here's an example. Many people to this day believe that other than the United States and perhaps Western Europe, most people in the world have short lives and lots of kids. The horizontal axis measures the number of kids per woman. The vertical axis measures the length of the life. Okay? So if you're high in the upper left corner, it means you have few kids, long lives. There might be a causative relationship there. The colors pertain to what part of the world is showing the life versus number of children. Okay? So yellow is the Americas, orange is Russia and Western Europe, navy blue is Africa, light green is the Middle East, etc., etc. Okay, so this is 1950. In 1950, it was true that other than in Western Europe and the Americas, people had short lives and many kids. That was true in 1950. However, to this day, many people still believe this. So watch this data set. Now we're going to go fast forward through 59 years. And as you can see, most of the world has now moved into that upper left-hand corner. Most of the world, it's true that people have longer lives and fewer children, except for navy blue, which is Africa. This is a demonstration from a website called Gapminder, Gapminder. They have lots of illustrations of how you can animate data to change a mindset and break down resistance. The message here is you can use a data set to change a mindset. Next thing you do is be sure to enchant all the influencers who make a decision. Most people assume it's the father. Very wrong. 80% of the time you'd be wrong. It's really the mother that makes the call. Sometimes it's the sister-in-law. Sometimes it's the grandfather. In my family, it's the daughter. Right? Whatever my daughter wants, she gets. It is that simple. Okay, so we're going to do a little daughter quiz. How many of you have daughters in this audience? Lots of you. How many have taken your daughter or rented or bought the Justin Bieber movie, Never Say Never? How many of you seen that movie with your daughter? You can hold your hand up high. None of you? Not one of you? Don't you love your daughters? Okay, 2 or 3 of you. Keep that number in mind, 2 or 3, okay? So, I want you to suspend disbelief. I want you to go and rent or buy. It's now on iTunes, that movie. That is the best movie ever made about marketing and social media. Because that movie will show you how Justin Bieber's mother made him successful using not millions of dollars, but YouTube. It'll show you a very good relationship between speaker coach and vocal coach and Justin Bieber. You want to see a mentor-mentee relationship in action? Watch that movie. And finally, the holy grail of marketing is, of course, word of mouth. Young people talking about your product or service. Watch the clips in that movie where Justin Bieber's people go into the parking lots of concert areas and finds girls who don't have tickets and gives them the tickets. And watch the sheer joy those tickets bring those girls and the word of mouth that they are generating by giving away a few tickets. It's the best movie ever made about marketing and social media. If you rent or buy that movie and don't find it a valuable experience to watch that, much less to bringing the joy into your daughter's life, I will give you your money back. Just send an email to Larry and he'll let me know who I owe the money to. Now we're going to make this amazing transition from Justin Bieber and Never Say Never to the Grateful Dead. Step 6 is to make your enchantment endure. The Grateful Dead has endured for decades. One reason why is at a Grateful Dead concert, there's this area for tapers. Not that anybody uses tape anymore, but the Grateful Dead has a special area for people to pirate the concert and then spread the music. While the rest of the members of the RIAA are suing little old ladies for downloading cello music, the Grateful Dead is encouraging people to pirate its concerts. This spreads the music. It finds more Grateful Dead evangelists, keeping the Grateful Dead cause going. More ways to endure. Build an ecosystem. That's the topic of this conference. Building an ecosystem. You are part of the sugar ecosystem. Great software companies have consultants, developers, resellers, user groups, websites and blogs, online special interest groups, conferences, webinars, PDFs, APIs, all the whole shooting match of an ecosystem. When you build an ecosystem, you have more people pulling for you. You have more people contributing to the quality of your product or service. The Apple user group kept Apple alive. Think of all the iOS developers that keep Apple at the cutting edge of smartphone applications. Think of the Android developers. All of this is part of an ecosystem. You want to last a long time? Build an ecosystem. Don't try to do it by yourself. Next thing is to invoke reciprocation. The expert on reciprocation is a gentleman named Bob Cialdini. Wrote this great book called Influence. This carpet depicts a very good example of reciprocation. Italy invaded Ethiopia in the 1930s. When that happened, the people of Mexico collected money and sent money to the Ethiopians to help the Ethiopians finance the defense of their country from the Italians. All right? 85 years later, big earthquake in Mexico. However, the people in Ethiopia were dealing with a famine. So it's not like they were kicking back and doing well. Still, the Ethiopians collected money and sent money to Mexico because they realized that 85 years earlier, Mexico helped Ethiopia when Ethiopia needed help, and now Mexico needed help, so the Ethiopians decided to reciprocate. Similar example, right after the Civil War, the people of New York bought their enemy in Charleston a fire truck because they heard that the people in in Charleston were using a bucket brigade. The first fire truck was on a ship that sank, so they had to buy them a second fire truck. Okay, this is right after the Civil War. The people of Charleston vowed that they would reciprocate to New York if New York ever needed help. So guess what? After 9/11, the people of Charleston raised $500,000 and bought the people of New York a fire truck. Reciprocation, 150 years later. 2 power tips on reciprocation for you. First, you will be my subject, okay? So, let's say I'm defaulting to yes, I'm thinking like a baker, not an eater. So I do something for you. So you thank me. Thank me. Just say thank you. Okay. So now what's the optimal response when someone thanks you like that? Okay. It is not simply you're welcome. It is you're welcome. I know you would do the same for me. I know you would do the same for me. In other words, I'm telling her she has class. I know you would do the same for me. I'm also telling her, I know you will do the same for me. That's right. That's right. That's the optimal response. Second tip on reciprocation. I need to enable her to pay me back. Because right now, she knows she owes me. She may want me to do more stuff for her. As a defaulter to yes and a baker, not an eater, I am more than happy to do more for you. But I am not clairvoyant. I don't know what you want me to do anymore. So we're stuck. She doesn't want to ask, and I'm not clairvoyant. I need to give her a way to pay me back. And then by paying me back, we clear the decks, and she can ask me to do more things. And our relationship can progress. So the two power tips of reciprocation. I know you would do the same for me. Give her a way to pay me back. Next thing is, don't rely on money. You know, if you're trustworthy and likable and have a great dicey cause, you don't need to rely on money. If you do need to rely on money, if it's only because of your commissions or your affiliate fees that you are enchanted with something, the enchantment is not genuine. You should not have to rely on money. I am not against paying money, believe me, but it should not be the crux of your enchantment. Don't rely on money. Step number 7 is to become a great presenter. You want to be an enchanter, you need to be able to present. The key to a great presentation, particularly a speech, is to customize the introduction. Talk about how you saw the host naked once in the health club. You know, do what you have to do. Do what you have to do. This is an example. This is a picture of my LG washer and dryer. The scenario here is that I was in Brazil speaking to the Latin American management of LG. However, because I'm not so smart sometimes, I was in Brazil when I figured out, you know, guy, you're speaking to LG. What you should have done is taken a picture of your washer and dryer so that you can open up your speech by showing LG that you use LG, right? I love this LG washer. Short cycle, minimal water. It even has a steam cycle. I've never used a steam cycle, but I bought it because it had a steam cycle. I thought that was just so cool. So I'm in Brazil. I don't have a picture of my LG washer and dryer. So I send a text message to my 2 older boys, the 2 boys I don't want driving a Mustang. And I try to invoke a little reciprocation. This is Dad. Get off Halo. Get off Call of Duty for 5 minutes. Take the iPhone 4s that Dad bought you and go downstairs and take a picture of the LG washer and dryer. Send it to me right away. I'm about to make a speech. I need a picture of our washer and dryer. Invoking reciprocation. Giving them an opportunity to pay me back. Relieving the pressure so they can ask me to do more things. And I'll show you how my sons understand reciprocation. So, 15 minutes go by. No pictures. Right? I send a text message to my older son, whose name is Nick. His younger brother is Noah. This is the sequence of text messages. Nick, did you get my text messages? He responds, Noah said he got the messages and took the pictures. Since you're talking to LG, can you get us some free TVs? Welcome to my life. And then you see my response. You know, there is reciprocation, there is defaulting to yes, there is thinking like a baker, not an eater, and there is also stupidity. Okay? I doubt it. Point here is to customize the introduction. When I speak, I love to customize the introduction. It's the first 2 minutes that counts. I'll show you some pictures that I've used to customize my introduction in other parts of the world. When I spoke in Moscow, I visited Red Square, and I had this picture taken. I used this picture to introduce my speech in Moscow. Russians truly have big balls. Okay? When I was in Edinburgh, I showed this picture. I went to Crombie's because I saw an episode of Bizarre Foods with Andrew Zimmern where he went to Crombie's, so I went to Crombie's, and I found this guy, and I experienced haggis, which some foods taste the way they sound. But this is my favorite picture. This is a picture of me in the Grand Bazaar of Istanbul. I love Istanbul. Istanbul, I think, is the most enchanting city in the world. And so, you see that guy behind me? That's the shopkeeper. I'm trying on a fez in his shop. You see that? That's what you call a Duchenne smile. That guy is happy. That guy's looking at me, and you know what he's thinking? He's saying to himself, this dumbass American is going to buy this fez. This frickin' dumbass fez has been in my family shop for 4 generations. There's finally a dumbass American who's going to buy this fez. I bring happiness wherever I go in the world. The next thing is, when you introduce a product or service, when you're encountering this resistance, when you want to sell your dream, you want to sell your dream. The great presenters sell their dream. When Steve Jobs introduced an iPhone, he did not hold up an iPhone 4 and say, I have $188 worth of parts today. We're introducing this. $188 worth of parts manufactured under somewhat controversial conditions in China. Okay? That's not how he positions an iPhone. He positions an iPhone as cool and thin and beautiful. And there's an app for that. And it'll make you more creative and more productive and sexier. It will change your life. That's what an iPhone does. Sell your dream. And then the 10-20-30 rule of PowerPoint by Guy Kawasaki. The optimal number of slides in a PowerPoint presentation is 10. 10. You'd be lucky to get 10 points across. 10 slides. Some of you are looking at me with skepticism. Guy, you've used way more than 10 slides. Why are you telling us to use 10 slides? You've used about 40 already. I'll tell you the explanation. You're not me. Okay? You should be able to give these. You should be able to give these 10 slides in 20 minutes. I'll tell you why. 94% of the world is using a laptop that takes 40 minutes to make it work with the projector. The other 5%, we have an hour. Okay? 95% of the world has really only 20 minutes because 40 minutes is going to be spent futzing with the projector. You need to plan for that because 95% of the time it's true. The next thing is the optimal font size is 30 points. Not the 8, 10, or 12 most people use. You use 8, 10, or 12, you put a lot of text. What happens when you put a lot of text? You read the text. What happens when you read the text? One slide into your presentation, the audience figures out, this bozo is reading his slides verbatim. I can read silently to myself faster than this bozo can read the slides to me. I'll just read ahead. Now, if you find this rule too dogmatic, I'll give you a rule of thumb. Figure out who the oldest person is in your audience, divide his or her age by 2. 60-year-old divided by 2, 30. 50-year-old divided by 2, 25. Someday you may be pitching a 16-year-old VC. God bless you. Use the 8-point font. Okay? Until that day, 10 slides, 20 minutes, 30-point font. Step number 8 is to use technology. We are in a great time to use technology to enchant people. It's because blogging and Twitter and Facebook and Google Plus and Pinterest, they're fast, free, and ubiquitous. It cannot get better than this. Fast, free, and ubiquitous. Step 1 in using technology is to remove the speed bumps. This is a screen capture of CAPTCHA. We all have encountered CAPTCHA. What's the purpose of CAPTCHA? The purpose of CAPTCHA is to reduce the number of customers that you have. Okay? So I have to prove that I'm not a robot. So I have to type in Holber and the second word. Holber I can understand. It's the second word. That's somewhat problematic. How many of you know what language that is? See, the same number of people who took their daughters to Justin Bieber movie. That's why I told you to keep that number in mind. Okay, so 4 of you know that that's Hebrew. The 4 of you, how many of you have a Hebrew keyboard? Okay, that's 0 of you. So basically, nobody in this room could get past this CAPTCHA. Oops, that's kind of a problem. And then I want to tell you something, just the irony of ironies. That is the Hebrew word for obstacle. How do you like? I'm not making that up. I wish I could tell you I planned that. Obstacle. Here's a company that has removed the speed bump. It's a company called Sungevity. One of the speed bumps in getting a solar panel installed at your house is the first appointment, the estimate. What Sungevity does is they don't set up a time to come to your house. They ask you for your home address. From your home address, they go to a satellite photo. From the satellite photo, they can look at your roof. They can figure out which way is southwest. They can mock up the panel. They can figure out how much the panel will cost. They can tell you how much power the panel will put out. All of that by just giving your home address. Remove the speed bumps. In social media, if you want to be successful, you don't just tweet out or update or post that your cat rolled over. Nobody gives a shit that your cat rolled over. Okay? What you need to do is post out information. What just happened? What just happened at SugarCon2012? What just happened at F8 for Facebook's developer conference? What happened at Google I/O? What happened? What does it mean that this happened? What does it mean that Google added social search to search? And finally, how do I make it happen? How do I see what social search is? How do I make social search? How do I get the new Facebook timeline? How do I get the new Sugar software? How do I do that? Assistance. Social media, the key is information, insights, or assistance. And some rules of engagement. I think the life of a tweet is 2 hours. Facebook update, 2 hours. Anything you post is 2 hours. If you want to also be enchanting, if you answer your email within 48 hours, it's a big factor in being enchanting because nobody answers email in 48 hours. Next thing you need to do is remember Lonely Boy 15. If Lonely Boy 15 sends you an email, you answer him. The world is flat. Let 100 flowers blossom. Plant many seeds. Don't just worry about Walt Mossberg and David Pogue and Tara Swisher. Worry about everybody. Flat. And finally, social media is core to marketing these days. It is not an experiment. It is not something you do when everything else is done. Number 9, how to enchant your boss. Very simple. The key to enchanting your boss is when your boss asks you to do something, drop everything else. It might not be fair, might not seem optimal, tough. You want to enchant your boss? Drop everything else. Your boss asks you to build a prototype, a PowerPoint presentation, drop everything. Start working on it because you want to prototype fast. You want to prototype fast for 2 reasons. First, it proves that you dropped everything. Second, the faster you prototype, the more time you have to fix. So you prototype, you ask your boss, is this what you wanted? She tells you it is or it isn't. You revise and you go back. Prototype fast. This is the actual sort of outline of what this presentation became, with all the good stuff added. So I gave this basically text-only few photographs to a designer and said, make this into a beautiful PowerPoint presentation. The key is to prototype fast. The third point is to deliver bad news early. The concept that you will deliver bad news right before the bad news happens and the miracle will occur and no bad news happens is flawed. Bad news will happen. The faster you deliver the bad news, the better, because that way you have more time to fix the bad news. Deliver bad news early. The 10th and last point, how to enchant people who work for you. The key to enchanting people who work for you is provided by Daniel Pink, who wrote a great book called Drive. And in that book he says, basically, you have to pay people adequately. Let's take that as an assumption. But then, to go beyond paying people adequately and to truly enchant them, you have to provide a map. The M in MAP stands for mastery. Enchanting companies, enchanting bosses enable their employees to master new skills, to become better employees. They work autonomously, independently. No one's breathing down their neck. And finally, towards a higher purpose. So if you want to enchant your employees, enable them to master new skills while working autonomously towards a higher purpose. The next way to enchant your employee is to empower action, to say to them, you have good judgment, you are intelligent, you know what you're doing. I empower you to make a decision. You don't have to check with us all the time. And the third way to enchant your employee is to suck it up. How many of you watch Dirty Jobs? Dirty Jobs is a very enchanting show. What makes Mike Rowe so enchanting? It's his willingness to do the dirty job, to go to the paint factory, the poi factory, clean the outside of a skyscraper, go underneath the house, get the dead rats, go into the sewer, clean out the sewer, perform artificial insemination on turkeys, chickens, cows, and pigs. Whatever it takes, Mike Rowe will do the dirty job. Be a boss like Mike Rowe. Show that you're willing to do the dirty jobs. Suck it up. And this is my Second to the last slide. 2 pieces of information here. If you want a copy of this PDF, just send an email to gina@garage.com. Be happy to send you a PDF. Second piece of information is the woman who made my slides lives in San Francisco. Her name is Anna Frazal. This is her website. If you ever need great slides, she is a great PowerPoint designer. And this is my final slide. My final slide, because you all got a copy of Enchantment, and I'm going to do autographing for you. And I want you to know that when I sign your book, I'm going to sign it, Resisting You is Futile. Okay? So now you might want to wonder why I signed the outside. I signed the outside of the book because A, it's faster. B, to me, the reason why you get a book signed is to show off you met the author. If it's signed on the inside, how can you show that off, right? When you fly home, I want you to be sitting in Virgin America first class, and you're reading my book, and the person next to you says, "Oh, Randy, you're irresistible. How is that?" And you can strike up this great conversation. I'm also telling you how I'm signing it because many people have trouble reading my writing. It says, "Resisting You is Futile." And I'll tell you how I learned that my writing is hard to read. In my previous book, I used to sign it Kick Butt. So I signed it Kick Butt, Mary, Kick Butt, Guy Kawasaki. One day I'm at a signing, I do that, and this woman comes up to me after I sign her book, and she says, "Guy, why did you sign my book Nice Butt?" I said to her, "Well, it's because you have a nice butt, lady." So anyway, I'll sign your book, Resisting You is Futile. I'll sign it Kick Butt, Nice Butt, Lick Butt, whatever you want. But usually I sign it Resisting You is Futile. So just to summarize, 2 minutes and 3 seconds long. The keys to enchantment. Threefold. You want to be likable, trustworthy, and high quality. The quality of Apple. Use Apple in your mind as the target. Macintosh, iPhone, iPod, iPad. The quality of Apple. You want the trustworthiness of Zappos, where hundreds of thousands of women will buy a shoe without seeing it or trying it on. That's trust. And finally, you want the likability of Richard Branson, who got down on his knees and started polishing my shoes so that I would fly on Virgin. The likability of Richard Branson, trustworthiness of Zappos, and the quality of Apple. And that's the art of enchantment. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Guy. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You should be very pleased I didn't begin my introduction of you with the word "unfortunately," which is
unfortunately
a
you
joke
couldn't
from
get the speaker
yesterday.
You wanted.
Yes. Have a seat. We've got a great set of panelists.
How many do we have?
So we have 4 people, and I'll facilitate here.
Okay.
So
I'll sit on the end.
I'd like to invite our panelists up: Jesus Hoyas, Natalie Petahoff, and Brent Leary. Come on up. Join us on stage. We've got a little time here. We'll have a chance to have a discussion, ask a few questions. And since I have such a great history of giving introductions, I'm going to ask each of you just to say a couple of words about yourself. Tell the audience. So, Jesus, let me start.
Well, my name is Jesus Hoyos. I'm a CRM analyst for Latin America, and I like to use a lot of the examples that Guy is mentioning, especially the one from Amazon. Because we today, I do speaking engagement, and I was in Paraguay, and I asked a simple question: who has bought from Amazon? And this is in Paraguay, okay? And everybody, raise their hands. And Amazon is setting the benchmark. So the local pharmacy in Paraguay is competing with that mindset of the customer experience and the enchantment, and that's something that I see everywhere. So.
That's good. Brent?
Hi, Brent Leary, CRM Essentials, independent CRM analyst, blogger, radio show in Atlanta, which Guy was actually on maybe 3 or 4 years ago when you were first getting started with Alltop, I think.
Cool.
And so really interested in hearing what he has to say and hearing what everybody here has to say.
Brett and I have been following you around. We see each other in the audience where you're speaking all the time. So it's our
Yeah. We actually saw you at the Inbound Marketing Summit, and we were sitting next to each other when you were doing the keynote, and he said to me then, I really want to have guys the keynote at SugarCon.
And next time I was naked in the gym, my first thought was, anyway. Natalie.
I'm at Dr. Natalie, and I aspire to be Guy Kawasaki.
Oh, God.
Or at
Should
least
aim
speak as
higher.
well as he does. Former Forrester analyst, was the chief strategist for a large PR and marketing firm. And now I'm teaching at UCLA and helping people understand why social media is important.
Great, great. So, there's so many points that strike home for me when I'm watching you give that Enchantment talk. One of the ones, that hits me immediately is that captcha example, that speed bump. Because I see that all the time, right? There's a reason, by the way, I am not a Verizon subscriber, and it's exactly this. I was on AT&T, and one day I was driving from San Jose to San Francisco on 280, and if you've ever done that at AT&T, you can't have a call of more than about 5 minutes, because you are dropped literally every 5 minutes.
Right.
I got so frustrated with this. At the end of the drive back, it's on a Saturday, I drive into a shopping center, I go into the Verizon store, and I say, forget this, I want that phone. And I said, I don't want any of the contract thing, I'm going to buy this phone outright. And, I just want to be on Verizon. Well, the salesperson is like, oh, this is great. They've died and gone to heaven. They're going to close early today. I'm putting down the credit card. I'm going to buy the thing, not just the contract. And by the way, I want as many minutes and that's everything, right? I mean, I live on this thing. And so he goes back, is all excited. Comes back to me and goes away for a little while. And I'm waiting, and I'm starting to get a little, tired here. Comes back to me and says, I'm sorry, Mr. Augustin, we need to run a credit check on you, and there's a lock on your credit check record. And I look at him, I said, well, he goes, but it's not a problem. If you call this 800 number and tell, whoever it is, Experian, the credit agency, it's okay, they can release it. I'm thinking, well, okay, I don't know why they need to do this. To sell me the phone I'm going to pay with the credit card. I mean, I could walk in. So I call the 800 number, and it says, thank you for calling so-and-so. Our normal hours of operation are 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, right? Saturday, of course. Okay, fine. I can't do that. So he goes, well, I said, what do you need this for? I mean, I'm paying for the phone. I'm not doing this on a contract, right? And you have my credit card. Then he says, well, let me go see what I can do. And he says, it's a policy. It comes back. He says, here's what we can do. If you put down a $500 deposit and you pay us everything, right, which I was doing anyway, and you bring us 2 utility bills to prove to us your home address and let me take a copy of your driver's license, I can sell you this phone. And I didn't say anything. I just looked at it. He finally goes, it's not a very good deal, is it? And I said, no. And he goes, yeah, well, maybe come back on Monday. I go, I'll think about that. And I walked out, and I literally walked around the corner in the same shopping center, walked into the T-Mobile store, put down my credit card, and said, can I get a new phone here? 5 minutes, I was out the door. Nothing, right? That's why I'm not a Verizon subscriber. I'm a T-Mobile subscriber. Okay, so why are so many companies so bad at this? Why? You see it. You see it in the captchas. You fly out, well, you fly Virgin, so you probably get free Wi-Fi everywhere, right? I'm still on that other airline you mentioned where I have to pay for Wi-Fi. I log in, and to pay for my Wi-Fi to log in, I have to fill out a captcha.
Yeah.
It's like I logged in,
on
and
Google, you mean?
and I'm on a plane. Are there a lot of hackers on the plane with me, dialing in, trying to
Well,
get
maybe they
free
thought you're
Wi-Fi?
going to host your website from
on
the
the
plane.
plane? Why are so many companies bad at this? Why do they put up so many barriers to customers?
I mean, I think it comes down to the command and control thing. So if you study management theory, a lot of the managers that are of that age came from do as I tell you, right? And so they were not really interested in innovation. They were not really interested in people really thinking for themselves. They wanted things to be orderly. And as a manager, if you have 500 employees, you'd rather have them doing what you'd like them to do rather than thinking for themselves. So I think we've created structures in companies where policy rules. So I'm sure that guy, if he was just sitting down with you going, okay, here's the phone, right? But he was reading from some script that he was given, right? And I remember when I first came to social media, I admit, I'm not Chris Brogan, right? He's been blogging for 15, 20 years. The guys who wrote Clue
No,
Train...
he hasn't.
Not that long? Okay. Well, a long time. Longer than me, right?
Blogs haven't existed for 15
Well, it seems that long. And you look at the guys who wrote Clue Train Manifesto, and I have to be, I'm old. Like, I first got to social media, and I heard things like, oh, genuine, authentic, direct. And I'm like, what is this crap, right? What is social media, really? And then I was on a phone call similar to yours with a company, and they gave me this stupid script. And I'm like, you know what? Do you know what I do for a living? I am a customer service analyst, and I write about this. Do you want me to write about this? And they're like, are you throwing your weight around? And I'm like, I just need what I need, right? And so I think that the whole idea behind social media is that the customer has a voice, right? So before it used to be PR and marketing delivering a message, and they never looked to see who was responding. And customer service has notoriously had this kind of, we can't really help you,
Well, there's a step where you want to empower customer service employees. That's a big part of it. This person was obviously not empowered to make a decision.
No.
You hear all that all the time. But my question is sort of coming back to, why can't companies figure out a way to do that? Is that so hard?
Well, some companies have,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
Zappos, Amazon. I mean, they've empowered their employees.
Technology is winning the race. You think about the business strategy, and be agile internally. People are forgetting that you need to catch up with technology, and we as consumers, are winning that race. But internally, there's nothing behind the smile. And I remember talking to a customer service out of a telco out of Dominican Republic, and resonate a lot with what you're saying, Guy. There has to be something behind the smile. There has to be something behind a quick implementation of something, that you have to be agile. And unfortunately, the companies were not becoming agile, as we are as consumers. And I think there's a gap, and that goes to do a lot, of the way they're thinking Wall Street versus what the consumer wants. So I think there's that gap, and I think it's going to take a lot of time for companies to realize that.
Apple seems to get some of this right. It's been a little while since you were at Apple, but you walk into an Apple store, and you sort of feel like people are empowered to help.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I brought my daughter's Mac in. Somehow she got a virus, on the Mac. And I remember the person, the Genius Bar, saying, we can't, we're not, that's not a job we're allowed to do. There's issues with that. But let me show you some things here, right? And immediately goes in and fixes the problem. Right? They were sort of giving a little bit of a disclaimer, saying, hey, I can't guarantee things around virus removal, but here you go, and they found a way to solve the problem.
But it has to do with leadership, because talking about Verizon, during Christmas, we were switching from Sprint to Verizon. I go to the Verizon store, they have no Apples, no iPhones, and they're looking at me like it's going to take like 3 hours to switch you and the whole family. This is during Christmas. So what did I do? Google it. I go to the Apple store. I call in. They told me, yes, we have it. I go in, and within 45 minutes, and this is inside Florida, with all the people shopping for iPhones, I was in and out. And we have contacts, everything, transfer, and not receive, everything through email, everything. And forget, that it's a good iPhone, but it's the whole customer experience, the empowerment, and we were amazed.
Yeah, it seems to me that they're not customer service folks more than just helpful humans. And when a helpful human is there instead of just somebody who's doing customer service, it creates a better experience for the other human who's trying to get help. So I think they do a great job of that. And I mean, just when you walk in the store, you feel something. Some stores you walk in and just feel like getting back out. But that one is one of those that you really feel like you're going to get help and get what you need and feel good about it.
So how do you teach companies? I'm sorry,
so I think the fish stinks most at the head, which is what I say when I teach leadership companies, which means that leadership doesn't get that customer service is a revenue preservation and revenue generation model. So when Zappos first started out, I asked Alfred and Tony, how did you do this? Like, because when I first looked at that model of ordering shoes online, I'm like, no way, shoes never fit me, right? Am I a 9 or am I a 10? It changes every shoe, right?
You're a 10 in my book.
Oh, thank you.
Enchanting.
It's so enchanting.
Hey, I wrote the
this
book.
Man. I told you I want to be just like him. So I said, how did you do this? And he said, well, now, we had no money for marketing and advertising and PR. So we thought, what if we delivered great customer service? That would be a differentiator. I'm like, what? Your revenue model is customer service? That's ridiculous, right? That nobody does that except maybe Lexus and Nordstrom's.
Customer service is the new marketing, right?
It's the new marketing. It's the new. I mean, that's why I spent a year in an agency, because I wanted to understand from their point of view what they saw. And I still believe customer service should run the company. I mean, they are the point of contact with the customer. And this afternoon, I'll be talking about oodling. It's a model by John Boyd, who is a fighter pilot. It stands for observe, orient, decide, and act. So if you have a noodle, you'll oodle.
Say that again.
Spell that.
If you have a noodle, you'll oodle.
All right.
So O-O-D-A.
Yeah,
I made it into verb. Google's a verb, oodle's a verb.
O-O-D-A.
It's leadership. Leadership does not get that customer service should run the company. If you think about it, where do you get the most information about your products and services? When you send out a PR or marketing message, does anybody really respond? You go through the sales process. Do you get feedback? It's in customer service where you really get that information. It works, it doesn't work, your service is awful. I wish, that is amazing data that if you took and you interviewed all your customer service agents, and you took all that data and integrated it back into your company, you'd have an amazing company. I mean, Deming said this, 30 years ago. The American auto industry sent him to Japan. Something to look at.
So support is the new marketing,
Yeah.
right? And as part of that is related to social and social networks today. The customer is really defining and controlling the messaging today.
But
right?
that has been out there for a long time. I mean, you look at Apple, you look at Amazon and eBay, they have their own ecosystem and communities way before Facebook and Twitter, and I'm assuming, that they know what we want because they're analyzing that data. And that's why, Amazon, the best service is no service. Why the Apple is the customer experience is excellent, and going to what, Guy was showing, the data set, if you understand who your customers are, you don't have to go to Facebook and Twitter to understand, why. You is look into your own CRM system.
Tim O'Reilly talks about this architecture of participation a lot, and Amazon is the great example of that. Is Amazon more social than Facebook? I mean, think about that.
Well, one's a network and one's a business.
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, you're buying things, and typically when you buy something, you talk to people, you're trying to do research, you talk to other customers, and then you buy it. And Amazon from the beginning has kind of been like that. Whereas with Facebook is extremely social. But how many people went to Facebook originally to buy something? I mean, you're just there because your friends are there, you're people that have like interests, and you want to talk about things and share information, which is purely social. But Amazon is social but has business at its heart. And I always thought that they're one of the stealthy social kind of businesses, but it was built on e-commerce. I mean, they had social profiles on your Amazon account for years before people even knew about Facebook. And so I think Amazon has really kind of been under the radar, but they put social on top of commerce, and I think that's something that a lot of business people look at.
Go ahead, Guy.
If I were Jeff Bezos, I would either buy Pinterest or copy Pinterest today. I mean, so you have hundreds of thousands of 35 to 50-year-old American women posting stuff they want to buy. Wow. Imagine if that was all on Amazon. So I pin this and I click here to buy. I mean, that is such, I don't know if I'd pay $1 billion for it, but, wow, I would do that if I were Amazon in a second.
Absolutely.
Well, I think
Well,
Amazon.
it depends if they have too much revenue, then $1 billion would be too much. If the revenue is lower, then yes, you pay $1 billion. So it's interesting. You see the social networks and social sites as they look for business models sort of beyond advertising. moving towards this e-commerce direction. And yet, any e-commerce sites,
going
like
social.
Amazon, moving into the social.
Yep.
Who's in a better position to get there with both deliver the right experience and have a sustainable business? Are we going to see both? Which one's going to be better?
You'll see both, but I mean, I was thinking about what you were talking about, getting internet in your airplane, and I think it was on Delta, where a couple of flights I had recently, you get on, and Amazon you're available to go to Amazon.com to shop. You can't do anything else. They let you do it for free. And I'm thinking to myself, this is like
United,
a perfect...
by the way, it's guilt.com.
Oh,
but, yes.
I'm thinking to myself, this is a perfect opportunity for Amazon to really own the air.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they have Amazon Prime. And I'm thinking to myself, I would pay an additional $30 or something if I could just use my Amazon Prime to get online in the air. Or, if I have my Kindle Fire, why can't I access all the videos that I could stream? I'm already an Amazon Prime customer. Start using that to build in even more good feelings about the company.
I don't know if you get a Boingo account, Boingo will sign you on to GoGo. So Boingo includes GoGo.
Boingo,
I use it.
All right.
I use it, and they're everywhere.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter which airport. I mean, it's
No, this is on the plane.
Yeah.
I'm saying, yeah.
So, Guy, you've been in the VC world. Company pitching to you. Company that comes in and says, we're going to build a great social network. We have all these features. Maybe they're getting started, get a few people there. No clue how we're going to make money, but we're going to have millions of users, right? And then over time, we'll figure out how to add revenue on top of it. The other end, company says, the book industry is completely messed up in terms of the distribution model and pricing. We're going to sell books online, and that's how we're going to make money, and we'll do all this other stuff to help make that a more engaging process. But they come to you with the commerce model as the lead. Which do you fund? Do you fund both?
Well, my advice to
do
the
you
audience...
punt it to the angel network and say you guys all put money in, and then when it works?
My advice to the audience is watch what I do and invest in the other one. Because, I mean, the more I learn about the venture capital business, the more I think it's just luck. Now, obviously, Sequoia and Kleiner Perkins are lucky a lot, so they must know what they're doing. But, God, I look at these deals, and at the time you had to squeeze the trigger, it's like, okay, so let's just go through a few examples. So let's say you're presented with eBay on day one. So your first question to Pierre would be, well, so you're selling a used HP printer. If you're selling the printer, how do you know you get paid? If you're buying the printer, how do you know it works? Besides that, I don't see any flaws in eBay. Right? So then two guys come in and say, we're going to start a company called YouTube. We need infinite bandwidth with infinite server space so that people can upload pirated video, and what's going to make us tip is when people drop Mentos into Diet Cokes. Oh, yeah. Where do I fund that deal? And so you just go, Twitter. So Twitter comes to you and says, well, we're going to enable people to send out 140-character text messages. Boys, have you heard of ICQ? Have you heard of text messaging? Or why should there be a Twitter in the world? And so the more I learn about venture capital, I basically think you make 20 bets, you hope that one is successful, and then you say, I knew that was a good team in a good market in a business model. Okay? And then the other 19, if somebody presses you and says, well, how come you bet on Webvan, and why'd you bet on these other things where you lost millions of dollars? You say, I told my partners not to do that deal.
I used to get beat up for not being Webvan so much. But anyway.
I mean, I think what it really comes down to, a lot of people don't know this about Amazon. In the very beginning, they weren't that successful, in the very, very beginning. And what they did was they created affiliate groups, people who are passionate about this idea, and they said, what do you think? Where are we going wrong? And they took that feedback, and they continually improved the product. It goes back to this idea of what customer service could and should be. And so you take that and you build your business with that feedback. And I think that's why they've become so successful.
Yeah. Big data, and they turn fulfillment into an art form and a science. But I mean, I order a MacBook Pro on a Thursday afternoon. I get it Friday morning. Free shipping.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a beautiful thing. I mean, being able to get that like that, it's great. And they turn that
Unless
big
you're a retailer on the, with brick and mortar shops.
Yeah.
You buy your MacBooks on Amazon?
Yeah.
Really?
I bought a MacBook Air, like a month ago.
So
It's great.
we're down to the end of our time here. I'd like to ask a couple thoughts that you want to leave the audience with. Conclusion, wrap up. Who'd like to start? Jesus?
Yeah, I think companies need to be real, and I like to use a lot of the example of American Airlines. They have a TV ad that they tell you, we know why you fly, and they have the executive, going through the line. He finds a seat, he gets a blanket and a pillow, he gets a smile. He goes back home, he goes to American.com, AA.com, and he gets miles. Daughters comes in, oh, sure, and suddenly they are somewhere in Tahiti. We know that's a lie. Okay? And to be honest, I mean, I'm not the George Clooney of American, but I have, my many million miles with American traveling all through the Americas. And today, after I don't know how many years, I don't know how many millions of miles, American doesn't know me. And you see that TV ad and you see the experience that you get every day, we have to be real. We have to understand who your customer is, look into your systems and understand and then apply all the 10 things that Guy said, because they're common sense stuff, that we need to be sure that we understand as a leader of the company.
Good. Brent?
I think all the things we talked about over the last couple of days, cloud computing, it's important, social, mobile, it's all important, but you have to make sure we use it, once again, to really accentuate the humanity, because, customers are humans, and they have needs, and their needs may not line up all the time with, the company, but use the information and the power of this stuff to really get to know the customer and be able to provide them with things they're going to need. If we do that, we're cool.
Good. Dr. Natalie?
Taking a note from Guy, he said, sell your dream. So I have a dream. I have a dream that every single customer, every single time is treated with dignity and respect, that they're spoken to with genuine and authentic language that makes them feel like they're special. And I would like to challenge everyone in the room to ask yourself, are you that kind of leader? Are you ready to stand up and make this happen? Because it starts with each and every one of us.
Okay. Guy, you get the last
First,
word.
apology. I never swear in my speeches, but Larry just brings out the worst in me. That's a caveat. The second thing is my recommendation for, basically framing your customer service and your relationship is, assuming you're not a psychopath, that you should never ask people to do something that you yourself would not do. So, if signing up for a new site, you would not go through CAPTCHA, don't put your customers through CAPTCHA. If you would not submit 2 utility bills, $500 deposit and pay for a phone, don't expect Larry to, become a Verizon customer, because you wouldn't do that either. So I think that's just a very good sort of conceptual framework for customer service.
Great, thank you. Please, a big round of applause. Thank you. Thank you very much. Wonderful. We really appreciate it. Great. We have a couple of fantastic keynotes yet this afternoon. At 1:30, Pardot and Tract will join me to talk about building the complete process from marketing automation and lead acquisition all the way through to the revenue cycle. We have that at 1:30. And then at 4:30, great, stick around for the conclusion here. Journalist Paul Gillen speaks about the changing buyer-seller dynamic.